Gabriella Wagner. I'm the founder of SunRay Construction Solutions. We help thousands of contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers secure their lien and bond claim rights. Today, we have a very important webinar called 7 Common Lien and Release Traps and How to Avoid Them, conducted by the absolutely extraordinary construction attorney, Alex Barthet. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the incredible Alex.
Thanks, Ariella. My name is Alex Barthet. I am a board-certified construction attorney here in Florida, and today we're going to talk about 7 of the most common lien and release traps we see that come through our office and how you can avoid them. So let's talk about the webinar. So everyone should have a GoToWebinar chat box on their screen. We will answer all the questions at the end, so feel free to submit your questions throughout. We will get them at the end. Just please do not include the names of any people or companies in your questions. All right, so what are we going to go over today? We're going to start with the basics. You need to understand the basics so you can better understand the exceptions to the rules. We're going to talk about 4 specific lien law traps. We'll talk about 3 specific release traps and how to deal with each of them. We'll answer any questions that you have at the very end. All right, so let's go over the basics. So step 1 in asserting lien rights is that you need to serve that notice to owner within 45 calendar days from your first work. This applies if you are a sub, a sub-sub, a supplier to a sub, or a supplier to a sub-sub. You do not need the notice to owner if you have a direct contract with the owner. So if you're a plumber and you do work directly with an owner, you don't need a notice to owner. But if you're a plumber that is hired by a GC, if you want lien rights, you need to serve that notice to owner timely. Step number 2, you need to record your lien within 90 calendar days of your last date of work. Recording a lien is where you prepare it, sign it under oath. It gets recorded in the clerk's office in the county where the property is located. You can lien while you are still working. So you don't have to wait to be done with the whole job or wait to be terminated halfway through. If you are not getting paid on a job and you intend to keep working, you can record while you are working. Every day that you keep going out is another day that extends your lien right deadline. If you want to make a claim against a payment bond, so if the contractor provides a bond on the job, then you need to serve what's called a notice of non-payment. The name sounds like it's just a written notice declaring that you're not paid. It's actually a specific statutory form. It needs to be signed, notarized, and served on the surety and the contractor within 90 days of your last work. Step number 3, no later than 15 calendar days from recording the lien, you need to serve it on all interested parties. When you use a service like SunRay, they will take care of mailing your lien out to all of those parties so that you don't have to, but that is also a requirement under the lien law. Step number 4, if you have a direct contract with the owner, you need to serve what's called the contractor's final affidavit no later than 5 calendar days prior to filing a lawsuit to foreclose on the lien, which is the last step, which is filing the lawsuit. Keep in mind that we highly recommend that if you need to serve that contractor's final affidavit, you do it when the lien is getting prepared and recorded so that you don't miss that deadline serving it 5 days before you file a lawsuit. And then step number 5, within 1 year of recording the claim of lien, you need to file a lawsuit to foreclose on your lien. You cannot re-record the lien to keep your lien alive. That is not valid. That just makes the first lien expire and the second lien invalid and potentially fraudulent. You need to file a lawsuit on your payment bond claim. So if the job is bonded by the general contractor, you need to file a lawsuit on that payment bond no later than 1 year from your last work. So notice that the deadline to sue on the lien is shorter than the deadline, is longer than it is to sue on the bond. So a bond is within 1 year of your last work, and to sue on a lien is 1 year of the recording date of the claim of lien. Okay, with those basics behind us, let's get into the 4 lien traps we want to talk about. So lien trap number 1 is service of the notice to owner is the date it is received, not the date it is sent. So said differently, the notice to owner must be received by the 45th day, not sent by the 45th day. So if you put the notice to owner in the mail, it's got to go certified on day 41, and it takes 5 days to get there, and it's received by the owner on the 46th day, your notice to owner is no good and you will not have lien rights. Now, there is an exception to this rule, and that is if you serve the notice to owner by the 40th day, 40th day, and have it confirmed as received by the post office, not the recipient, the post office, then no matter when or if it's actually ever received, it's deemed served. So SunRay uses a manifest every day. They go to the post office and they hand the post person the package of all of the documents that need to go out via certified mail. There's a list on a piece of paper. It's called a manifest with the names, addresses, and the certified mail numbers. And the post person goes ahead and confirms that each one of the envelopes that's handed to them is on that list, and then they stamp the list as being proof that that envelope with that certified mail number was received on that date. So once you have that by the 40th day, 40th day, it doesn't even matter if the item is delivered or not. The mail truck could catch on fire. It's deemed served as long as you have that manifest. So we have a tool which you can get for free at calculien.com. So go to calculien.com. It's a handy desk tool to calculate the 45 days for first work and 90 days for last work. We've sent out probably, at this point, probably 25,000 of these tools in the mail. So feel free to go to calculien.com and we'll send you one and you can have it on your desk so you never have to count on your fingers again. All right, lien trap number 2, retainage must be liened within 90 days. There is no exception in the lien law for a later date to lien for retainage. So if you do work on a job, your last work starts the 90-day clock, and you need to record a lien for everything that's owed, including unpaid retainage by the 90th day. If you do not record your lien by the 90th day that includes your retainage, you will not have lien rights for that retainage amount. So there is a slight difference in the rule with respect to payment bond claims. If you are only owed retainage, you have a longer period of time to serve that notice of non-payment on the bonding company and the contractor. But that's only if you're owed only retainage. If you're owed other amounts, then everything has to be wrapped up and put into that notice of non-payment. Lien trap number 3, if the notice of commencement is terminated, you only have 30 days to record your lien. So as you know, we talked about the rule, 90 days from last work. That rule, the exception to that rule is if the notice of commencement is terminated. Maybe the owner is refinancing, selling the property, there's a new contractor. Once that notice of commencement is terminated, from that date forward, you have 30 days to lien for any amounts that are owed under that original notice of commencement. And if you miss that 30 days, you cannot lien for any amounts that were under that notice of commencement that was terminated. How do you know if a notice of commencement is terminated? On big jobs, they're talking about it because the closing is a big deal. So my guess is you're getting emails, they want releases, but on smaller jobs, you'll get notice in the mail. They are obligated to send you a copy of the notice of termination that's been recorded. This assumes, of course, that you did send a notice to owner and you have not already issued a final release. So if you sent a notice to owner but gave a final release, well, they don't have to tell you about the termination because you're not technically owed any money because you issued a final release. So keep that in mind. Now here's a pro tip. Maybe it goes without saying, but this amount that you need to lien for or get paid includes all unpaid retainage through the date of the notice of commencement, the date of the termination of the notice of commencement. So we get this a lot. So, you're working on this job, they need to refinance or on the job, and they say, okay, well, look, we just need to terminate the notice of commencement, everything will be fine. And you say, okay, well, I need to get paid. And they say, okay, well, you're owed this amount under your contract, but you're owed, let's just say, 100 grand in retainage. We don't have to pay you that. You're not due that. And the answer is no, they're wrong. You are absolutely 100% due all of that retainage through and including the notice of termination. Because if you do not lien for that amount by the 30th day, you will not be able to lien for it later. So one of the ways we deal with this to solve this problem is to say, okay, look, pay me the $100,000 now. I will give you your final release showing that I've been paid in full, including all retainage. And then in the next pay request that comes along, I will credit back to you the $100,000 worth of retainage that I gave to you before. So that's a way that we kind of get that amount over the termination and into the new notice of commencement, and then you credit it back, and then you can lien for it in the final lien amount if you're still owed money. Second pro tip, you need to serve a new notice to owner once the notice of commencement, the new notice of commencement is recorded. So once they terminate the old notice of commencement, if you're still working, you need to serve a new notice to owner to have lien rights for your future work. All right, lien trap number 4, first work and last work have nothing to do with the day you send a bill, send a payment, or when payment is due. The notice to owner is not calculated from when you send a bill, when an amount is due or past due. It's not calculated from when you send an invoice, a pay request. None of those dates matter for determining notice to owner and lien deadlines. The deadlines are triggered by actual meaningful contract or approved change order work or delivery of materials. So your notice to owner, as we said, no later than 45 days from your first work, and the lien is no later than 90 days from your last work. So we have another tool. It's called the Lien-O-Matic. It's also a handy desk tool. You can go to lienomatic.com. We'll send you one for free. It explains all of the rules for lien, bond claims, public jobs, federal jobs, FDOT jobs, all of which, by the way, have similar but not identical rules. The timing is very similar, for example, for an FDOT or Miller Act bond claim, but they're not identical. So we highlight all of those differences. It's a handy tool. It sits right on your desk. We send it out to you for free. You can get it at lienomatic.com. All right, so let's talk about these 3 release traps. Release trap number 1, email copies of signed releases are valid, even if the original is never delivered. Some people's minds are blown when I tell them this. They believe incorrectly that because they're holding the original one with blue ink that has the little seal on it or stamp, that the copy that they send in the mail is unenforceable. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you send someone an unconditional release via email and you never get that payment, you may have given up your lien rights. So don't think that because you're holding the original that has any value. It has zero value. What has value is the language in the release. So you need to make sure that if you are not exchanging a release for a check immediately, that you make that release conditioned on actually receiving those funds. So here's some sample conditional language. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, this waiver and release is conditioned upon and not effective until the undersigned receives paid funds of blank. So if you're expecting a $10,000 check, you'll write $10,000 in. So you can just handwrite this into the release if you want. You can type it. Even better, we have a stamp that we will mail to you completely free. If you go to makemeconditional.com, we will send you that stamp. That stamp has that little warning. So when you get a release and you print it and you're about to sign it, you can stamp it with the conditional release, and you will be assured that that release is conditioned on you actually getting the money. All right, lien release trap number 2. Once you provide a final release, you need to send a new notice to owner to have lien rights in the future. I mentioned this before, but it is very important to understand. When you issue a final release, you no longer have lien rights unless you send a new notice to owner. So for example, if you're a supplier to a subcontractor and you provide a final release thinking that because they asked you and you didn't think you were going back, and then they pick up the phone 3 weeks later and say, oh, we need another delivery. If you want lien rights, you need to send a new notice to owner. And if you don't, then you will not have lien rights on that new subsequent delivery. All right, last release trap, trap number 3. The through date of the release controls over the payment amount. Let me explain what I mean. If you are expecting a $10,000 check to pay you through, let's say, the end of July, but when you get there, there's only an $8,000 check. So what do? You need to change the through date of the release, right? Which is the date that the release is effective through, not the day you sign it, the date that it's effective through. So in the body of the document, it probably has that through date. So in my example, you are expecting to release all of your rights through July 31st, but that's for 10,000. For 8,000, that through date is different. Maybe it's July 23rd. Maybe it's July 17th. Maybe it's July 7th. Who knows? You'll have to figure that out. And you need to change the release, because if you decide to accept a release that where you are only paid $8,000, but you give up all of your rights through July 31st, you cannot come back later and say, well, I didn't get that last 2,000. A judge is going to look at that release and say, well, you decided to take 8,000 instead of 10,000 to give up your rights through July 31st. So we're done. There's nothing else to talk about. So another way to deal with it is you can add an exception. So for example, you could say this release excludes invoice number 123, and now you've carved that out of the release, which may be the difference between the amount that you were expecting and the amount you actually received. So with that, Ariella, do we have any questions?
We have one question. What if you're the owner and GC, so owner builder, would a sub still submit a notice to owner?
Yes, I understand the question. So most subs will likely send a notice to owner because that's just their habit, but technically they don't need to. If the owner of the property and the builder / contractor is either the same entity or a related entity, then the subcontractors would technically be considered the quote unquote contractors, and a notice to owner is not technically required. It's good practice for subs to send those notices just to avoid an argument in the future, but that would not necessarily be required if the owner and the builder / contractor are related entities.
At the moment, here's another one. What if you're the owner and GC? With this steps, okay. I think that, bear with me one second. How about electronic signatures on waivers and other documents? So I think that one is, Dan,
perfectly valid and enforceable. The rule is whatever happened, whether signature, an email response, did it manifest an intent to be bound by the terms of whatever that document is? Signature is the classic example of that. So an electronic signature, if that was what the intent was, is valid and enforceable. You would think in my profession as a lawyer, people are arguing that that's not my signature, that's a copy. it never comes up. It never comes up. So an email, a signature that's scanned and emailed, that's faxed, that's a copy that you get in the mail, that's valid and enforceable. Of course, if it was forged, that's a whole nother story. But if the person that sent it intended to send it and what you have is the copy, then that person will be bound.
Also, I'd like to add to that question, interestingly enough, a notary is not required on your waivers and releases. Everyone prefers having a notary on their waivers and releases, but it's not required by the statute. We have a few more questions. If a notice of commencement expires and you get a new notice, pardon me, let me just reread this person. Okay. I believe the person is asking if a notice of commencement expires and you get a new NOC, do you also need to get a new NTO?
I would need to see both of the notices of commencement. If someone is recording a new notice of commencement just because the old one expired but nothing changed, then the answer is probably no. If the new notice of commencement is materially different owner, different lender, different contractor, then the answer is probably yes. But again, technically that notice of commencement, the first one should have been terminated, not just allowed to expire. It's a bit of a gray area in the law. So I would say it depends on what you're doing. You know, it never hurts to send a notice to owner if you think maybe you should send a notice to owner, because a notice to owner is just a letter in the mail. So if you think that it will create rights, whether you have them or not, my advice is always send the notice. What's the harm? There is no harm. Any other questions, Ariella?
Yes. How would I know when a job actually starts if it's not noted on the notice of commencement?
Okay. You don't. That's the short answer. You know, that would be in other records that would potentially exist. So like when the permit was pulled, but more than that, it would be records that are maintained by the contractor or the owner of the subs.
I think the important question, part of that, to the person that asked the question, is your role as the general contractor, or are you the subcontractor on that project? Because are you looking for how to protect your company on the first day on the job? So to go to ask you the question, when the job actually starts, okay, so you're the supplier to the subcontractor. Okay, so
yeah, but it doesn't matter, right? So if I'm the supplier to a sub, it doesn't matter when the job starts. The question is, when did I first deliver?
Correct. And it also matters if you have specially fabricated material. So if your first day on the job as a supplier and it's not, or a subcontractor, is specially fabricated material, then the clock starts ticking as soon as you start fabricating that material. And for everyone on the call that's interested, doesn't know what is specially fabricated material, if you have, for example, a very special window that can only go into a specific area, that is specially fabricated. If it could be resold, it's not specially fabricated. So for subcontractors and for suppliers not working directly for the owner of the property, you have essentially 40 days from first furnishing labor and material to send your notices to owners. And I know a lot of people on this call are going, wait a second, I thought it was 45 days. A notice to owner needs to be received by the 45th day. But at SunRay, we use a manifest. If it's stamped by the 40th day, it's irrelevant, and sadly, whether the owner or the required recipients receive it. We have a few more questions we'll get through. And then for everyone on this call, if you have any other questions, we absolutely are here to help you, because this subject matter can be really, really confusing. So I'm just going to, there's just a few more. I want to get them. It's our pleasure. So the next one here is, of course, you can, we're going to send an email to everybody with the recording of this webinar. I don't want to miss anyone's questions. Let's see here. What if the contract was fulfilled retainage paid, and let me ask this again. What if the contract was fulfilled, retainage paid, and the GC wants to modify the original contract to add to the original scope? Is there a new NTO needed?
So that question would be dictated in part on whether or not you issued a final. So if you issued a final release, the answer is yes, you need a new notice to owner. If you didn't, this goes back to the idea that it never hurts to send a new notice to owner. Even if you didn't need a notice to owner, sending one doesn't hurt you. If you need it and you didn't send it, it could be fatal. So from the description of what you said, assuming that you didn't send a final, then no, you probably don't need one. But if there's any doubt, send one.
Okay. And one of the last questions we have here, and again, for everyone on this call, if you have a specific question regarding your waivers or you're concerned about something, feel free to shoot us an email. We're very good about getting back if we within a reasonable period of time. The last question here is, what happens to an NTO if the address has not been assigned yet? Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer it?
No, you can go ahead and answer.
Okay. So are you the general contractor or are you a subcontractor? I'm going to assume you're a subcontractor on this. So if the address doesn't exist yet, what happens is, generally speaking, the GC will have a master permit or a notice of commencement. So first and foremost, you'll look at the NOC, and the NOC will have a parcel ID on it and a legal description. It happens very frequently. So what happens to the NTO, it's irrelevant. You'll have a notice of commencement filed or a master permit. On the master permit, you'll also have that information of who the owner of the property is, generally, not always, but it will be on the notice of commencement.
Yeah, the short answer is if you send the notice to owner to the addresses that are listed in the notice of commencement and those addresses are wrong, you've done your job. Your notice and lien will still be good. It's incumbent upon the owner to ensure that the addresses and the information in the notice of commencement is correct, and you are entitled to rely on that information even if it turns out to be incorrect.
Okay.
Anything else, Ariella?
I think for now we're really good.
Okay. Well, this is for you then.
Okay. Our pleasure. Okay, so in the next few months, SunRay is launching our new platform. Very excited to share this with everyone on the call. You could do all of your waivers and releases. It's all automated. A lot of the issues that people have, if you'd like to go to the next screen, we can go fly through these so that people can get back to their work. You could track every single waiver online. You could send your waivers, receive the waivers back, sign them electronically. I know that was one of the questions. We are in all 50 states, so if you need assistance, we can assist you in all 50 states. Would you go to the next slide for me, please? We also have something really helpful. A lot of times, general contractors will send you waivers that they would like you to sign. So we've developed a AI-powered waiver guard. So if you think you're signing a conditional waiver and release, but in fact you're signing an unconditional waiver and release. And again, an unconditional is you are waiving everything. So happens very often where something looks like it's something else. So AI-powered waiver guard will help you determine whether or not what you're signing is what you think it is. So let's go on to the next slide. Again, everything is automated. You could see your reports. You could see exactly through dates. We can connect through QuickBooks, other software that you might be using. So it could be a lot easier for you and your team. If you want to go to the next slide. These are the pricing. It's very economical. It's $29 a month for 10 waivers. That's included, et cetera, et cetera. And if you go to the last slide, if anyone is interested, you can select this or put your phone up right here. If you're interested, we can have a representative reach out to you. And you know what? if anyone is interested, we're happy to give you 1 month for free using this new incredible software. So feel free to, take your phone to our QR code here, and we will reach out to you. That being said, we have some fabulous resources for you. If you do notices in other states, we're in all 50 states. Again, you have a deadline tracker all the way on the right-hand side. You could go onto our website and look up any state's lien law. And we also have a wonderful project information sheet. It's free. That's really, really helpful if you're having issues getting job information. So if you're in the office and you're depending on your sales team, I would definitely download it. It's absolutely free. You can have a meeting, and this is the basic information that you need to actually fill out that notice to owner form. And the last slide. We have 2 webinars coming up. I recorded my lien. Now what? How do I get paid on July 16th? I served my payment bond claim, which is a big one. If you're working on any projects that are bonded, bonding companies are not your friend. So that's on August 20th. You can go to sunraynotice.com/education. And that is it. So our next seminar is in Tampa on September 27th. September 17th, and we'll be in Tampa. Great time to ask questions live. We're there live, and that's at sunraynotice.com/seminars. And next one. Feel free to give us a review if you liked our webinar. It means a lot to us. Just put your phone up. Lots of phone. QR codes here, but feel free to give us a review. We would really appreciate it. And with that being said, again, if anyone after this webinar, sometimes what happens is we hang up and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to ask this question about through dates, or there's a $10 waiver that I received. Am I supposed to sign it? Feel free to reach out to us at any time. Alex, as always, you do such an incredible job. Thank you so much. And I wish everybody a sunny day.